We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cycle 2016. And you've heard about internationalization already, or if you haven't yet, you can watch the recording about Nick Chambruno's talk about internationalization. This is something that's come up in many ways over the years. It's come up in several ways in this conference. And we just so happen to have a real live Globetrotter here, someone who went to where he wasn't from and created opportunities. My good friend and Lithuanian, Laurynas. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Tell me when you want me to start the slides.
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
You can pop them up.
Go ahead.
So anyway, so my name is Laurynas. Thank you for the introduction. And sorry about being late. My speech was due before the last speech that Lobo did. Sorry about being late again. So I'm basically a guy who travels a lot, and it actually surprises me that given how many well-traveled people we have in this audience, that I'm one who has to make this talk, because here you have Lobo, who has been to I don't know how many countries. I already lost the track of how many countries. Also have Eddie, who is also a big globetrotter, and So the point being that there are many much more experienced people on the subject. Sorry. Right. So first of all, the idea of this presentation is not to sort of tell you things that you may already know about anyway, but the idea is just to give you like a set of ideas that may be useful in your globe-trotting experiences in the future. So if all you take away from this presentation is just maybe one idea, I will be more than happy. My credentials as a globetrotter, because I noticed that the organizers, I'm going to bash organizers now, they haven't uploaded my bio. So for all you know, I could be just a guy off the street talking to you for whatever reason. So yes. So I have prepared some. Oh, somehow there. Yes, that's going to make it difficult to watch.
That's interesting.
Yes.
It's not sharing?
Yeah, I guess we have to flip all of them around, right? I apologize for the technical. They looked all right on my computer. I don't know what's happening.
Why is it wanting to show more than one?
Select them all.
Why is it showing more than one slide?
PDF.
I don't know.
Nope, that didn't work. All right, emergency surgery. Emergency surgery 101.
Well, if Lobo is doing it, you can just continue.
Well, yeah, I can, but it will be better, to go with the slides as well.
Be like, what the friend?
I see that Lobo is almost done. Do you actually have to turn them all around, like manual?
Yes, no.
Yeah, but that's what you're doing successfully.
Good.
Oh my God, it's just ruining the whole thing. But what can you do? What can you do? You weren't supposed to see those, but anyway.
No, don't enlarge, just click on the slide. Commando.
Ah, go back to your place. Go back to your place.
What kind of mag is that?
Yeah. I just, all right, we'll just go with this size. I think everybody can read it. All right, carry on.
Right. Okay, so where was it? Oh, right, my credentials. So, so these are basically my credentials. The last one is actually a lie, because you don't really need to own a Japanese car to be a globetrotter. Well, maybe some time ago that would have made you a globetrotter, but not. Yes.
You're still not sharing. I don't see that we're sharing.
Oh my God.
If you want to go to full screen, click view.
Not full screen.
Full screen isn't the point.
It's not full screen. Yeah, but if
It
you
says we are sharing, and we're just obviously not sharing the right thing.
It has to be entire screen. Can you click it?
I guess I hope we're not sharing
Desktop.
anything inappropriate.
I'm not able to connect to the chat room, so I can't check with them.
But it's not.
It should be.
Well, the good news is
Fine
that
now.
it cannot get any worse from this point on. So
It should be fine now. Can you see the screen?
I see the desktop.
Okay.
Sharing yours.
Okay,
I
click
don't see
view.
the PowerPoint.
What?
We don't see PowerPoint.
You don't see the PowerPoint.
well, it's not PowerPoint. It's PDF.
Or, yes, we don't see any documents.
Does it have to be PowerPoint? I can no.
No. Well,
Now,
Yeah, that's fine.
now we do, just now.
Click view. Click view.
got
Yeah,
the
to
view.
make it bigger.
Yeah, and then should be full screen. Start the question. Yes.
But then it goes to 2 slides for some reason.
Let's.
Yeah, we can do it this way. I mean, yeah. So to change slides, what do you do? Okay, that's cool. Anyway, can they see me now? I think.
Is the online audience getting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yay!
Okay, so sorry about that. So anyway, my credentials, I made them half jokingly because it was quite funny to sort of to have to count all the countries that you've been to, and you know the number is basically it's not very impressive compared to I guess how many countries Global has been, but it's yes, the Japanese card joke, I already told that. Let me go on. Oh, basically this is how it looks on the map, but you have to bear in mind that you know, I haven't actually been to all of these places that you see. So, you know, basically, you know, you have this big piece of Russia right here. So the only piece that I visited was the Kaliningrad district. You know, it makes it look, but that's something to blame on the software that I used. But other than that, it's all true. I mean, I haven't traveled on a camel's back anywhere in Africa. I haven't been to Alaska, even though if you mark US, you get that as well. But that's basically the essential idea. And obviously, my biggest credential is my son Benedictus, who you can see over there. He's sitting looking at me anxiously. He was actually born in Paraguay almost 9 months ago, and you know, just having a child in a foreign country, especially if that country is still a developing country, especially if that country is Paraguay, involves a lot of like things that are not easy to do and take care of if you want to do it properly. But we did it anyway, and that's moving on to the next slide, because I have to sort of move on to the next slide right away. You know, the good and the bad and the ugly. That's sort of traveling and globetrotting, and I really think that you need to go to at least, I don't know, maybe 10 countries, that you spend some time, more important, to spend some time living in them, to sort of view, to have this view of the self as a globetrotter. So, you know, what is the good, you know, about being one? The advantages, in other words. The advantages are a couple. So you can see it gives you bragging rights, things, you know, that are really cool, and seeing new places, experiencing new things. This is like very basic. The one thing that I would sort of set apart from this whole group is it actually provides you with a lot of opportunities to get accustomed to frugal living, because a lot of, I mean, at least I have met a lot of people who travel on a shoestring, which is basically trying to do it on a budget. And it's, I personally have never been what you call a backpacker, but I know that many people subscribe to this sort of philosophy, and I do believe that it's a philosophy. And you can, and there are a bunch of things that you can do in order to travel the world like this. But this presentation is not about that. Let me switch to the bad. I'm not sure if you noticed, but the bad actually overlaps quite a lot with the good, because the reason being that a lot of these things, like experiencing new things, all these things that look wonderful on the paper, they actually are quite demanding. And especially, I would probably want to emphasize getting out of your comfort zone, new business ideas. Well, what could possibly be bad about getting new business ideas? Well, for example, I have met far too many people that have lost their shirts trying to make a business abroad, because a lot of times you run into these people, and I would say that Americans are guilty of that. It almost seems like you have these people, they come to a foreign country, especially in Latin America where I live, and they almost have this like urge. It's not like they need to make money in order to, to afford living in this country, but they feel this sudden urge to have a business as a way to sort of legitimize their being there, And usually these people, they do not fare well in their business ventures. Why? Well, first of all, a lot of these business, like expat set up business, they have this one thing in common. They usually aim at expat audiences. So what they, for example, if they are selling something, there was in Medellin, in Colombia, where I live, there was a place, they were like a breakfast place. You could go there, like get an American breakfast. But the problem with the place, it was a very nice place. I mean, they did everything right from the perspective of how business is supposed to operate. But it was catering to mostly expats. Colombians were coming there, and since they mostly did, the guys who were running the place, they mostly did the promotion on Facebook. They were mostly promoting it among their expat friends. So it was like completely expat aimed, and Colombians were coming there, they were looking, and all the people were chattering in English, and they were like, oh, this place is not for us, and they were just, going away. So this sort of thing, and I sort of, after some time in Colombia, I came to learn that this is actually a big problem with a lot of businesses, expat set up businesses in Colombia. It goes just across the board, basically. People come there, and obviously they have like these expectations. I see that this may not be working. Oh, I'm afraid that my computer may die. To explain the situation, what I'm doing now. This is not working. Okay. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. Why is this not working? I'm trying to keep it from dying, and it's still dying on me.
The power seems to be on. Let me plug it in somewhere else.
Okay, it's not. Yeah, it's working now. Yeah, sorry about that. So anyway, speaking about expectations, a lot of time, and this is something that Casey told me to the audience some years ago, to the audience like this here in Turkey. He said this idea that as a foreigner, if you go to a foreign country, you usually have a set of experiences, a set of skills that may not be available at that particular place. This is all true, but I have, in my time in Colombia at least, I have run into a number of people who come and they have, while they do have like different skills and that may not be had at this particular country, they come with inaccurate expectations. They believe that they are going to have very difficulty in setting up business. They expect everybody to speak English, or and mind you, these are the people who do not have this, like, well, in your own countries, in your own cities where you come from, you have these circles of people that surround you, relatives, your friends, and when you come to a foreign country, you usually don't have that, at least at the beginning. And these people can be a great help. They can get the word out for your business. They can help you with streamlining to set up your business if it's not yet set up, and so on. And these people, they don't have that, and still they sort of expect to have it easy. The problem is that they usually don't. So these are basically 3 reasons why you can actually lose a t-shirt when trying to do a business in a foreign country. Getting out of your comfort zone, why is it bad? It's actually not bad, but for some people it's awful difficult. I come to to see that a lot of people, they actually don't even realize how stuck they are in their own ways and how stuck they are in their comfort zones. Usually, if you follow this, like this sort of very, very specific, like number of steps where you go into school, then you enroll into a university, then you get a job, and you do basically what your parents did 20 years ago. The problem is that the world is not as it used to be 20 years ago, and you have all these different problems, and the current world actually requires us to get out of our comfort zone in order to succeed. The problem is that a lot of people still live the way they used to live 20 years ago. So, and this is the reason why it's painful. If you ever run into a friend and you try to coordinate something like as simple as going maybe on a fishing trip, and you just see how many problems are cropping up. Your friend may say, well, no, tomorrow doesn't work. Well, this weekend I have this and that, and I have how many things we have to bring, those endless questions, and you know, after you're doing it for a month, you just give up, and you realize that this friend is actually has a big problem with his with being stuck in his comfort zone. And you know, if you would try to do something even more daring, you may have even more problems with this person. Moving on, the ugly. Well, actually, the bad, I wouldn't call it bad. I just wanted to use this title bad, so that's the reason why I put it up. But the ugly is really ugly, and so you can, if you are globetrotting, you can lose your belongings, you can get scammed, robbed, getting killed, all that stuff that a lot of people sort of, you know, they realize those things are, you know, out there, but they do not understand that this may actually happen to them. It may actually happen to them at some point. So, for example, I'm not sure if you heard this, I'm not trying to freak you out in any way, but this is just something that needs to be said. I'm not sure if you heard this story about it was on news a couple of weeks ago. A Russian couple, they were killed in Fiji because some people apparently profiled them. They broke into their house and then they killed them. The same thing happened to some Lithuanian guy who was traveling across Brazil a year ago, 2 years ago. He just got killed. You know, and the people, what people do not understand is that being a foreigner in a foreign country, it's very easy to get profiled. I mean, people just, you know, even in Latin America, where you have such a mixture of such a melting pot of different cultures, races, and so on. Even when you hang out with people that look pretty much like you, white people, they still know that you are a foreigner because you dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, and there are a bunch of things. You don't have to go to China for people to know that you're a foreigner. And this is actually something that, you know, bad people can use against you because they for example, in Colombia, I was just on my one of the days I was just on my laptop chatting away with my friend. He owns like a coffee shop, and I was telling him how bad, because he's a bit of a left-leaning guy. So I was just telling him how bad the situation has become in Venezuela in terms of crime and all that stuff. And he was like, yes. And then 2 hours after the conversation, I learned that after we finished talking, some guy was robbed at his shop at a gunpoint. So just 50 minutes flat after we finished talking, some guy got robbed right at his shop. And you know, the place that we live in, it used to be like one of the Medellin. It's the second biggest place in Colombia, and it used to be the first city in the world based on annual murders, on how many murders were committed on a yearly basis. So it was a pretty dangerous place, but now it's not a dangerous place anymore, and still people get profiled. And the guy who got robbed, he was an American who left his hotel, he went to have coffee, and someone has profiled him. Someone tipped off the robbers because they were the guys who came to rob him. It was all like very, very planned. They went on a motorbike. The guy had a gun, and he knew exactly what he was looking for, and he got the golden watch, the golden this, the golden that. It's never a good idea to wear too much gold, you know, whatever the country. But the guy obviously didn't know that. So I assume that he lost a lot of money. Fortunately, he didn't lose his life. And that happens too. Right. So moving on, let me see. I had something here as well. Let me just, like I say, I cannot make it any worse now. Right. There was something, obviously, there are a bunch of things that you can do to sort of, to avoid this happening to you. for example, it's always a good idea to research as much as you can about the country that you're going to visit. And if you are planning on living there, even more so. Obviously, you have to sort of strike the balance, right? You cannot let analysis turn into paralysis, because this is something that will ultimately keep you from making the move. But for example, crime situation, common scams, it's not very hard to read about all those things. And for example, once when I was in Buenos Aires, that was actually something that happened on my first day in Buenos Aires. I was just, thanks for the support. I was just hanging out in the city for the first day, and obviously I had no idea what Buenos Aires was like, because I was holding like a big ass map like this, looking somewhere, and the people, and this was happening right in the middle of the center, and I had no idea that such a thing may happen. So basically, what happened was, just within 20 minutes of time, I had like 2 attempts at robbing me. It was just like amazing. First, I had the guy pass me by. He dropped like a bunch of money, like a stack of dollars this big. And then, the guy said, "You want to split it with us?" And being, a kind guy as I am, I said, "Yeah, sure." Because I had, first of all, I was young. And then I thought, how can this guy, I knew it was a scam, but I was thinking, how can this guy possibly scam me? It's his, whatever it was, his money and so on. And, and what they do apparently, I didn't stuck, around to find it out, because I just returned the corner, and there was this guy who dropped the money. So I just turned around and left. But apparently what they do is they use like fake money, and then they try to, after you touch the money, then they try to convince you that you took some of the money, and now there are money missing, and then they call the police friend, and then the police friend, the corrupt guy, comes, and you basically have to pay your way out of the situation. So like I said, I didn't stuck around for that long to find out. Then I was just walking by they have this port. I was just walking down the street there, and then I heard some people, behind my back, making noises. And apparently, a bird the size of a dinosaur just shat all over me, like everywhere, like this. But obviously, and these people, they were all too kind. They were like, they had a bottle of water. The other one had napkins, and they were like trying to clean me, give me like the best. And I was like, I started pulling it away, because I realized that it was something too good to be true. And obviously, they wanted to rob me, just clean everything off of me. And mind you, this happened like within 20 minutes, within a nick of time. And it's just so learning about those things, about scams and so on. It may seem like a common sense thing to do, but just how common sense really is. Okay, this is a big one as well. Respect the local customs. A lot of people and tourists in general. I wouldn't want to set apart Americans, but they have this, like, they go into a church, for example. They want to see this magnificent building, and then but what they wear is just just so inappropriate for the building. They just come inside and they're wearing shorts, sandals, still filled with sand from the beach. They come in like that. And at least in Latin America, I cannot speak for all of the countries. This is basically, a lot of people would look at it as a disrespect. So, and then if people see you as someone who is disrespecting their customs, as someone who's violating their whatever, they will not be very kind to you. And you want people to be nice and kind to you. This is important. Right. Yes. Talking in a foreign language loud in a place, in a public place, this is never good, because one, you attract attention to yourself, and the people, they just, if they weren't sure that you were a foreigner up until that point, they know that. I mean, and I'm not saying that everybody's like, like a hawk, trying to scam you, trying to, get something from you, steal something from you, but these are just things that you basically have to mind. And I would say that, unfortunately, Americans are guilty of doing that, because they talk, a lot of people I notice, they talk at such loudly, and you just, you cannot help but, pay attention. Or maybe you weren't paying attention to that person just a second ago, but now, he has your attention. And, so, right. This is also a pretty important one. At least in Colombia, I found that it's never a good idea to move into areas that are mostly inhabited by foreigners. For example, there's an area in Medellin called Poblado, and obviously you have a bunch of locals living there and so on, but mostly you have people, expats living there. And the problem with such areas is that, first of all, they are overpriced. That doesn't have to do anything with the ugly right here, but still, who likes to pay more than they have to? And the second thing is that you are basically painting a target on your back, because all people, all bad people who may want to cause you some harm, steal something from you, they already know that you live in this area. They know, maybe they don't know, you in particular, but it's just sort of, you make it more likely for yourself to be attacked and so on. What I would do, my wife, we would usually pick places where Colombians live, maybe Colombians like medium class, good places, but usually, places where you wouldn't run into a tourist or an American. I found that to be much safer. And did I say American?
A few times.
Sorry, no, I meant tourist. Right. No, it sounds almost like I'm bashing. No. That was not my point. Right. The last one, learn the language. It's just, it amazes me to think how many people, that's not to say they do not speak the language of the place that they're in, but they are not making even the slightest effort to even learn something. And it's usually bad. I mean, why is it bad? Because it's not bad from the cultural perspective, because people may think, you're living in my country, but you can't even say a word in my language. No, but you're basically putting yourself into a bubble of void. So imagine, whatever happens around you, if this thing or whatever information passes around you is not translated into your language or the language that you can understand, you're just not getting through the bubble. So it's like the worst thing. I mean, if someone was just, standing right next to you and planning to mug you, just, a couple minutes after, whatever, after you're done ordering your coffee, you wouldn't be able to understand a thing. And, I think that this is, at least what you can do is to make an effort to learn the language. This is important. I mean, I probably wouldn't learn a language if I lived in China, but then I have no intention of living in China. So, okay, moving on. Right, gains. So what do we actually gain from trotting the globe? A bunch of things. These things, they actually they look kind of similar to the slide on advantages that I had, but I would distinguish gains from advantages, because gains they are long term. So if you learn a language, that's going to be long term most likely. I mean, if you sort of keep practicing it, gaining worldly experience, new perspective on life. I will explain in a second what I mean by that. Residence, for example, my wife, myself, and obviously our kid, we have a Paraguayan residence. Why is it useful? Well, first of all, Paraguay is a great country for anyone who doesn't want to pay a tax on their foreign earned income. So that's a great country, because if you get a residency there, you're not supposed to pay any tax on your foreign earned income. For example, in Lithuania, if you're a resident, if they consider you a resident, you have to pay taxes on your foreign earned income. So Paraguay is like, I mean, most countries are in this respect like Lithuania. Paraguay is not. And this is one of the reasons why we decided to apply for residency there. I mean, Benedictus, he didn't have to do that. He was born there, so it was much easier for him. New place to live. Well, this is something that I always have in my mind when I come to a country. I always think to myself, would this be a nice place for me to live the rest of my life? And I haven't found such a place yet, but I'm always on the lookout, because things are never perfect. You go to a country and you run into so many things. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are ugly, and but I'm still on the lookout, and this is something to bear in mind, because what do you know, maybe someday you just turn up into a place and you just fall in love with it instantly and stay there till the day you die. Find a partner, that's a good one, but don't use RussianBrides.com. Do it yourself, not necessarily in Russian. Right. Coming back to a new perspective on life, I think that's a pretty important one, because I remember before I had even traveled, quite a bit. I had this notion of, well, being a Lithuanian myself, I always looked upon being Lithuanian, or this Lithuanian identity, as something like very accepted. I mean, I didn't see any like cultural, because we as people, we know that the world can be divided along the lines like of cultural differences and all that stuff. But Lithuania was like a default for me. I never saw like any strange or weird things in our culture before I actually started traveling. And when you have traveled quite a bit and you come to your country and then you see, that's strange, because and you're looking at something that is being done by the people of the same nationality and you, and then you realize that Lithuanians, or whatever the nationality we're talking about, are very different from the rest of people, and you realize those differences, and then all of a sudden the people from other countries, they do not appear so weird, as they may have. That's how it is. And the second thing is that you may also realize that there are better ways of doing things than how it was always accustomed to do in your own country, for example. So this is a big one. Maybe I could give you some examples. Now I'm looking.
Examples of what weird things we do in Lithuania?
Well, for example, like compared to other countries, I don't know. I cannot think of any off the top of my head. Maybe you can suggest. What?
Editing show.
I'll need a volunteer.
That sounds inappropriate. I had something here. I had something right here. So you don't have any examples, or you need a volunteer, right? Oh, for example, one thing is like family relations. So, for example, compared to the family relations, the way they are in Latin America, we Lithuanians, I guess, we come across as kind of coldish. Because families are different, and for example, the family of my wife, they are very warm, sometimes even too warm, for me. But they are like very close-knit family. My family is not like that. Maybe because some things that have happened and so on. But my general understanding, I didn't realize that before I had gone to Latin America, that families are very different there. You just the families that they pull you in, and then they keep you. Which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes it may not be such a good thing, depending on your life priorities and so on. But in Latin America, at least one meal a day you have to spend with your family. 1 day a weekend, at least in Colombia, you have to spend with your family, either going to some some dacha or doing whatever. But it's it's like this.
Colombian dacha.
Well, in Colombia it's finca, but yeah. But here it's dacha.
Dacha is never one dacha.
Where you see Juan Valdezkov.
Who's that?
I'm making a Russian Colombian joke. Never mind.
Okay.
Here we go.
I got it now. Right. The other thing is, for example, just an interesting piece of information. So I'm not sure if I mentioned, but my wife and myself, we spent 2 years living in Paraguay, right? And Paraguay is like, it's based on like various surveys, and there's one in particular, the index of happiness is like one of the happiest countries on the face of Earth. That's incredible. Lithuania happens to be just the opposite, one of the unhappiest, if not the unhappiest. So I always found it kind of weird, because in Paraguay, most people are dirt poor. You do see some very very extravagant, very rich folks there. They drive like very cars you couldn't see on Lithuanian roads. But most of the people are very poor. They're poor. And still, for example, what I noticed there, and I sort of, I was like, I always view these sort of studies with suspicion. So, how do they determine, who's happy, who's not? What questions do they ask, and blah, blah, blah. But if you are getting on a bus in Paraguay, and you look like, into the eye of a guy who's working like as a driver there, you know. And he's like, you don't see this excruciating pain or this suffering that you tend to see in similar people in Lithuania. You do have that. Or for example, when you enter like a bureaucratic institution, like whatever, you know, government-run building, and here in Lithuania, it looks like this guy is a slave, and there's some guy making him do all this work. It's not that he can, and in Paraguay it's not like that. They're making this terror thing, drinking the mate, chatting away. They're not doing a good job, you know, to begin with. But at least they are, I guess, happy. Well, so that was like a big revelation to me. I never realized that, because when you live in your own country, you don't travel much. You sort of accept things the way they are. You know? So that's how it's supposed to be. But you know, through my travels, I have come to realize that no, there are different ways and different people, and the world is very different. In closing, what do we have here? Oh, yes, the pencils. So a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, he's German. He once told me that we were just, you know, exchanging some ideas about expats, the way expats live around the world, and he says. He said, you always get the sharpest pencils outside the box. Well, the pencils being, you know, people, expats, the box being the country, you know. So in other words, you always meet like the sharpest, the most intelligent people outside the country of the origins. So, and I found that to be true to a certain extent, but it's also a bit untrue, because if you are a guy who knows very specifically what you are, girl, let's not be sexist, and you know specifically what you want to do in life, and you don't care about traveling, you just want to do your thing, and you're good at it, you're successful. And I know many people like that. There's like, you shouldn't feel obliged in any way, and probably you will not. If you have all your priorities straight, you will not feel obliged to, for some reason, start traveling now, you know, to sort of get to know the world. If you are fine with that, fine. It doesn't mean that you're not, you know, sharp or whatever. And a lot of people, you know, especially within the expat community, they have this sort of like aura around them, you know, we are expats and we are not tourists, we are living in this country and we are so cool, and we have our community and we have our expat, you know, restaurant where only expats come. So yes, do you have anything else? I believe I do. All right, so I wanted to dedicate this presentation that was, I guess, okay, despite the bunch of technical difficulties we had at the beginning, to my wife, to my great friend and boss, Lobo. He's also my mentor. He's been my mentor for how many years? For quite a few years, I would say. 7? Anyway, I'm losing.
How could that be? I'm only 17.
That's amazing, and you're so smart. Can you imagine that? And also to my friend Eddie, who took the bother to come and visit us in Colombia. So we spent a great time. It was, as you can see.
Wait, I need to turn off the light because people don't appreciate the greatness of this.
This was taken in Medellin, and as you see, we're still pretty flexible, right?
Yeah. How many beers was that?
0 beers.
0 beers. You didn't see what happened after the beers. So anyway, so thank you very much for spending this half an hour of time with me, and I hope I didn't bore you to tears. So thank you. I'm not sure if you have any questions, but
We'll have some
please.
questions, I'm
Feel
sure.
free.
But I want to jump in and say, you know, that was kind of scary, but you haven't come home. Like you had the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the so-called negative sides were 2, and the good side was 1.
No. But I also had gains. You see, I also had gains,
in yeah, you did.
and the gains is the most important
But
thing.
so you, oh yeah, let's stop sharing.
We
I'll
have
help
to.
with that. But so the question is, you arrived in Buenos Aires, and the first day you almost got mugged twice within 20 minutes,
Right.
and you didn't run home.
I didn't.
And instead, you went to Paraguay.
Well, that was some years after that. That's right. But that's
But
basically the
okay,
story.
and you've had challenges and third world bureaucracy to deal with, and all kinds of joy, and you're still not going home. Now you're going to Medellin, Colombia. So
Well, yeah.
Can we gather from this that Globetrotting can be scary, but it's worth doing?
It's worth doing if you are this kind of person. I mean, Yeah, I mean, if you are this kind of, it's worth doing. I mean, for anyone who feels that they are still looking for themselves in their life, for anyone who still wants to get to know places, get to know people, and do all that, definitely, it's worth doing. I mean, I remember because I'm not sure if you remember, but it was you who actually took me to the bus station from which I took a bus to Buenos Aires, and and I had come to this event, that Lobo was speaking at. That was in the outback of Argentina, Cafajate, the place was called, and he, so Lobo, like, my idea was, I was still pretty young, I guess. My idea was, that I would meet people, maybe I would impress someone, get a job, something like that. But the event went down well, and Lobo, he was like particularly helpful. He introduced me to a bunch of people, very interesting people, but I didn't. It's not like I landed a job at the end. And so Lobo took me to the bus station. He was also about to get on a plane. And we had this coffee, we had chat, and he was like, okay, so now you go. And I was like, and I was shaking his hand and thinking, what the hell am I gonna do now? So I'm going, so I have a bus ticket to Buenos Aires, and what then? And but like I said, sometimes analysis may turn into paralysis. And I didn't do too much analysis. I didn't know anything about those scams in Buenos Aires and so on. And I'm still alive, I'm still alive to tell the story. So I think that sometimes if you really, really feel this urge within you, it's worth taking the leap.
He was cool as a cucumber, by the way. I didn't know he was about to shit his pants.
Laurynas. So talking about residency, and I guess you're interested still in the subject, what would you recommend, what countries you could recommend besides Paraguay to take a look into? And if people, and since you're specifically set up in Paraguay, I guess it would be interesting for everyone to learn how, just like overview of Paraguay system. If you want to move abroad, set up residency, and not pay taxes.
This speech would take, I don't know how many hours.
So just countries that you think are also interested and maybe even better than Paraguay, and just things to look at maybe before going to Paraguay, check it out.
I guess whether a country is better or not for your purposes of getting a residency is entirely dependent on your priorities. For example, for someone who has who's working on the internet, like a freelance guy, for example, or girl, I would say that Paraguay is a very viable option because, like I said, in Paraguay, you don't have to pay any income tax on your foreign income, and that's not the case in most countries around the world. So, and it's not like you have to live there because what you get is a permanent residency. So, for example, just to give you like a quick illustration, and if you were to get a residency card, let's say in Colombia, they do not issue you with a permanent residency card. What they give you is a shitty, pardon my French, is a shitty foreigner card. Like it's called like extranjería. It's like I'm not sure. Well, anyway, like a foreign residency, right? So, and they give you that, and you have to prolong that each and every year. And it doesn't like there are a bunch of problems that they have. But I would say that in a nutshell, unless you want to do a business in Colombia, for example, I wouldn't even look into getting a residency there unless you want to do a business like an actual, business, hands-on business that you want to do. Then yeah, sure, by all means. But if not, if you're just looking, to avoid paying taxes that your government would be all too happy to take from you, then Paraguay is a much viable option. And I wouldn't know any better options actually, if that's your situation. If you have
we're not seeking any specific advice here. This is not
I'm
the
not allowed to
financial consultation.
No, yes, and so as far as I know, Paraguay has like one of the best residency programs across Latin America. But again, if you're looking to set up a business, then you have different priorities, and maybe Paraguay is not right for you. As for some specific regarding the country itself, I mean, I yeah, I wouldn't like to live there. I mean, it's just like a very hellishly hot country. It's also quite poor. The problem is that it's not only the element of being poor, but it's also they don't have too much tourism. Usually, when you have like backpackers swarming around Latin America, they usually walk around Paraguay like this because for better or worse, there's not much to see in there. There are some things, like the Iguazu Falls, all these things, but you can access them, through Brazil or Argentina, and it's not a great country to live in. For us, it was mostly climate, and
Sorry, we have Paraguay here.
yeah, I also have a Paraguayan here. Yes, I completely forgot. So you may as well. By the way, I'm not bashing Paraguay. It may work for a bunch of people, And but for us, it was the climate that was killing us. It was just when we had the baby was just sweating, all the time. You couldn't just take him out. He needs sun. You cannot just even take him out, to the street. It's just ridiculous. And yeah. So I'm just now a little, wary of saying something. Because I just remember that we have a Paraguay, which we brought ourselves here. So yeah, I guess, does that answer your question, more or less?
Yes.
Basic steps for residency.
In Paraguay, right. I would probably just, because the way we did it, because we came to the country, obviously we had already spoken Spanish by that time, and we thought, we're going to do it ourselves because we're so cool. We speak Spanish, we can interact with people, blah blah blah. And then, the whole thing, it first attend because just by the book, you are supposed to get your residency within 3 months. That didn't happen for us. 3 months turned into half a year. Half a year turned into 1 year. At least for me, my wife, she got hers like sooner, but mine took ages. And I think that maybe they hated me because I was, I kept coming to them asking questions and blah blah blah, and so it wasn't like a very good experience. So what I would do, I would just hire a company. The problem is finding a good company or finding a good consultant because they just tend to rip off foreigners. They have that. I would be able to suggest you some people if you are interested. Some people that are trustworthy and really foreigners. They're not Paraguayans themselves. Not that there's anything wrong with being Paraguayan, but usually you have to fill out a bunch of documents. Then you basically submit those documents. You have to translate a bunch of stuff. Like you have to get the thing from the police where it says that you haven't committed any crime, that you haven't been on trial, and a bunch of these things that I can just, for anyone who is interested in, I can just send this information along, and be, a kind of a Paraguayan ambassador, which they don't have in Lithuania. But it's from our perspective, it was worth doing. And now, for example, we have a bank account. We have basically we're pretty well set up. I'm actually trying to avoid, which was the reason why I did this thing to begin with, to avoid having to pay taxes here, because it's just since the problem, the sticking point, the big sticking point for me is that I haven't had declared my departure from Lithuania officially, and if you don't do that, they basically they consider you a resident. So now I have brought a bunch of things that basically proves that I lived through this period in Paraguay. I have these like landlord contracts. I have like a bank account. I have all these papers and so on. So basically, this is something that I'm working on now. Because the government, your government, if it sees a way to get some money from you, they will go at it. You can be sure, and you will have a bloody hard time, trying to prove your innocence. So
your money has no rights, so it is not presumed innocent.
Yeah, it's presumed dirty, but they still want to have it.
Funny thing.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah. So let's say you're coming to a new country now, taking a trip. What would be like 3 things that you should do in general to get most out of the trip?
Well, are you talking you're talking about a trip, like going somewhere as a tourist, correct?
It doesn't matter, tourist or looking forward.
I would say that it does matter. There is a difference between those two.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
for the sake of the argument, let's assume that we're just going to some country. I guess the best thing you could do, you don't really have to do like free things, you know. You don't really have to stick to this sort of like rule of thumb. I would say that it's important to get to know or to have or to just to know someone that you know that lives in that country. For example, like a local guy or a girl, and someone that can, you know, someone that can tell you things, how things are done. And obviously, I will do my research. You know, that could be, you know, the first thing. You know. Like I said, you know, one needs to avoid having, you know, analysis turn into paralysis. But you want to do your research. You know, all these scams, all these like things that you can you know, suffer and so on. You have to know about them. You know, obviously, you don't spend, you know, doing your research like a week. You know, before you actually take a trip that only lasts 2 days. You know, so but yeah. So those two things. I'm not really sure what would be the third one. Yeah, finding a place where to live, I guess, would be a good one. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
So what about the citizenship? So you are still a citizen of Albania or a citizen of
Right.
Ukraine?
Right. These are two different things. Like you have here, you have citizenship, and here you have residency. So you can be, for example, you can be a resident of more than one country, and it doesn't give you the right to the citizenship of that country. For example, in Paraguay, you would actually have to be a resident for at least 3 years before you are able to apply for the citizenship, for the passport, right? Nobody will give it to you unless you know someone who to bribe. But that's like the theory, right? So after 3 years of having residency, you can apply for that. So Lithuania, for one, Lithuania, as you probably know, Lithuania doesn't have a dual citizenship thing, you know, so it doesn't allow you to have two citizenship. So, for example, theoretically, I could get a Paraguayan citizenship, and then, you know, because I doubt that Lithuanians would somehow, you know, find out that I'm a citizen of Paraguay, you know, a country, you know, that most of them would not even be able to pinpoint on the map, you know. But if that sort of thing were to come up, then I would probably have to lose my Lithuanian citizenship. They would probably just take it away because that's the law. That's what happened to this basketball player, you know, Vegys, who lost his Lithuanian citizenship just because he became a citizen of yes. They just took it away from him like this.
So this residency, what
rights?
What benefits and besides this tax?
Well, pretty much. Well, let's not phrase it like that, you know. Residency.
You said avoidance.
No, well,
It's
that's
a loaded
okay.
word.
I misspoke. Residency basically affords you all the rights, but the political ones. You cannot vote, for example, right? You cannot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed.
I'm pretty sure you are. So yeah, but all the rest of the rights, like you can start a business, you can run a business, you can be employed, you can employ other people, you know, all those things. These things you get. You know,
and what about, so if you're like going to that country, how many like months or so you can stay there, like
depends on
like the South America.
Well, as a Lithuanian, you can stay, for example, up to 3 months in pretty much any country of the Latin American continent, up to 3 months, and then you can prolong your stay for another 3.
Mm-hmm. So how did you
So
stay
6 months
for a year?
What?
How did you stay for a year?
Where?
In Paraguay?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
How
I had a residency.
Oh, but you were applying for the residency? Or?
No, I came, I applied, and then I just overstayed. Because when you submit the documents and all that stuff, they just give you like a paper, or maybe they even give a stamp that your documents are being processed. So with those documents, you can even travel actually within Mercosur countries. It's like a trading bloc that they have. Like there's Argentina, a bunch of other countries, right? So you can travel to those countries, and if you cross a border from Argentina to back into Paraguay, they will not fine you. Because, you know, actually when you cross the border from Paraguay to Argentina, they will not fine you for overstaying, because you have this paper proving that you have applied for the residence. Right. they're being processed. So that's the idea. But lately we have lived in Medellin. We still have a dog there and some in the place that we have. And we stayed there up until 6 months, which is like the allowance. Because at least in Colombia, if you overstay, because in Paraguay it's really ridiculous. If you overstay, it doesn't really matter if you overstay by a month or by 10 years. They still fine you the same amount. It's very ridiculous. And you just run into those things that do not make any sense at all. But I mean, I'm happy about that. I'm all too happy to pay, but in Colombia, no, they don't take those things seriously. I don't know whether it has something to do with the drug history and all that stuff, but they take those things seriously. So if you stay overstaying in Colombia, you'll get a fine. It will be it will be a handsome fine.
Other questions? Do we have any online questions? No? Okay.
Everybody who was online there has left.
Yeah.
Screw it down.
We start talking about tax avoidance, and people say, "Oh no, I don't want that on my computer."
Now everybody will think that was the central theme of your whole time, how to avoid taxes.
How to legally avoid taxes.
That was one point.
Thank you very much, Laurynas.